down the track, you are causing confusion and delay. To many of you, those phrases are nonsense and mean nothing. To some of you, you may realize that they're from Thomas the Tank Engine. To me, they became a language all to themselves. You see, I spent 4 years as a paraprofessional in a public school district, and I worked with a boy for the last 2 years who had autism. And I would like to introduce you to him today. His name is Riley Wilson. He is in 3rd grade this year, and he has autism spectrum disorder. And he has inspired my life and helped me to reach out in new directions and helped me to see beyond what's on the outside and what you notice about people. Because we all know those people who are awkward, they say the wrong things at the wrong time, they are not socially as eloquent as others. And I'm hoping that by getting to know Riley, you will understand people differently and you will look at them differently and hopefully be more open and understand them more. So like I said, the last 4 years I spent working as a paraprofessional. 2 of those years was with Riley, and I spent a lot of time. It was all one-on-one time with him, where I would follow him throughout the day and do the thing and help him get along in his classwork. So my main points today are going to be that I want to talk about autism itself and some traits of that, and also I want to talk about Riley and a day in his life. And then I'm going to talk to you about how we broke through the barriers to help him get to where he is today. So autism spectrum disorder is a disorder that affects about 1 out of every 110 children in the United States right now. According to the CDC, boys are 4 to 5 times more likely to be affected than girls are. And so this is a very common thing. It's called a spectrum disorder because there are a bunch of different traits. So there can be very mild where they're hardly noticeable. They can be so drastic that people have to be institutionalized because they can't control themselves. It's also a disease or disorder that the Public Autism Awareness page talks about. The traits are so varied and so different. There's a lot of public outbursts. There are many, many sensory issues, and those are the main issues that are had. That people with autism don't always process information, sensory information, the way the rest of us do. So textures, colors, smells affect them in a different way than they would affect you and me. Now Riley was moderately affected. But he's a very intelligent child. He is very good at rote memorization. Most of the stuff that he knows, he has learned by rote. He can tell you his address, he can tell you, but he has very little spontaneous conversation. His whole life is in scripting, which is basically he quotes movies. He spends a lot of time watching movies. People with autism, they often say that they visually catalog things in a movie-like or picture-like way. And so the world of movies is often more comfortable for them, and they feel like it's a more calming, soothing environment. Everything is predictable, everything is the same every single time. And so he spent a lot of time watching movies. He watched a lot of Diego, he watched Blue's Clues. Blue's Clues and Thomas the Tank Engine were movies that he watched frequently that he would script, and most of his day was spent repeating lines from those movies over and over and over. We worked with a lot of outside agencies to help him, and their suggestion was to try to extinguish or eliminate the scripting behavior so that he would not do that anymore, and they thought that that would help him communicate better. Well, in my research, now that we've looked at Riley and learned more about him, I want to talk to you about the ways that we broke through the barriers in his life. Through my research and through the things I did to try to learn more about him, I ran into an autobiography by Temple Grandin called Thinking in Pictures. And in this book, Temple Grandin is an adult with autism. She's very successful. When she was a child, she was about in the same position that my friend Riley is, that she did not communicate, that all of the specialists suggested that she be institutionalized. And so her mother refused to do that and worked very hard to keep her at home. And Temple Grandin says that if it was not for her mother and one other teacher who believed in her and saw past what was going on with her, that she never would have been successful in her life. She probably would have been institutionalized. And I vowed from that day to be that one person that believed in him and saw through what he had. And so as I did that, we would go through days where he would hit me 40 or 50 times a day. He would get frustrated. He would headbutt. I ended up going to some specialists for a while because he headbutted me in the throat one day. He would pinch and kick, and I would go home every single day, bruised and from head to toe. He would stomp and kick, and as you can see, he was a very large child. But I never stopped loving him and believing in the fact that I knew he could get beyond where he was. Well, one day in the hallway, we were walking along, and I noticed that every day when we walked out of the classroom, he would say the same things over and over. And I realized that it was from a son. I have a son who's the same age as Riley, and I had seen a lot of the movies that Riley quoted all the time. And so as we were walking along, I recognized what he was saying as being something from a Blue's Clues episode where they were outside at night looking for night animals with a flashlight. And as we walked down the hall, I noticed that the kindergartners had made owls and hung them down the hallway. And a light bulb went on. And I looked at him and I said, "Riley, are you trying to tell me to look at the owls?" And he said, "Yes, Mrs. Ainsworth, yes." And from that moment on, I spent time listening to what he was saying. And those things that he was repeating over and over turned out to be the way that he was trying to communicate with people. And the experts had told us that we needed to extinguish that. So they were trying to get rid of the only form of communication that he had, which made him angry and frustrated. And so through that process of listening to what he was saying, figuring out what it was referencing, we could replace the words in his scripting with actual dialogue. And the proudest moment of my life was when his mother came to me one night and said, "Every day after school since he started school, I have asked him how his day was. Today he answered me." And that was one of those moments in your life that you can never get back. I mean, that is one of those things, the power of words that boy has at this point. He now communicates, he'll talk to other people, he will hold conversations, he can have spontaneous conversations with his mom. He told his mom one day that he wanted her to get a specific movie, and she says, "Well, how will I do that?" He said, "Well, you will go to Hastings, and you will go in the aisle, and you will pick it up, and you will pay for it." And so he has now, with the power of words, has become someone who can get his ideas across, and he doesn't have to be as frustrated, and he doesn't have to be as angry. And so now that I've introduced you to him, he's opening up to a new world where he can do anything. He can climb bouncy houses. But as I end this, I want to tell you all that I talked to the person that works with him now full time. And in the month of October, in the 18 days that they had school, he had 12 days where he did not hit anybody at all. So he had 12 perfect days of no hits. But our lives are intertwined. His story, Riley's story, and my story are intertwined. Because of me, Riley has a voice. Because of Riley, I have a direction. I have decided that I need to be that person that believes in others and sees beyond where they are now for many more kids other than just Riley. So because of him, I'm going back to school to be a CODA. So he's very important to me.